The waters of the South China Sea looked calm in early September. Bright sky, low swell, a traffic lane of tankers cutting toward the Strait of Malacca. But tension doesn't always show on the surface. For months, pressure had been building. Close quarters encounters, blasts from water cannons, and relentless patrols that turned routine routes into risk. The Philippines and the United States chose to answer together, launching joint naval drills in the same waters where China has been pressing hardest. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive from Naval Brief. This wasn't just training on an empty range. It was timing, placement, and purpose, the kind of message you send with steel on the water. Before we go further, we need to rewind a few weeks to the sparks that lit the fuse. China's water cannons, persistent patrols, and pressure that forced Manila to call on its ally. In August 2025, a Philippine resupply mission headed for Second Thomas Shoal, a scraped-up reef outpost where Manila deliberately grounded an old ship years ago to hold a claim. A small rotation of Marines lives there, sleeping in hot bunks, watching the horizon, fixing what salt and wind destroy. Every few weeks a run brings food, water, fuel, and medicine. Without it, the outpost goes dark. China rejects that outpost. Beijing calls it illegal and treats every run as a provocation. As the Philippine boats closed on the shoal, Chinese Coast Guard cutters slid across their path. Loudspeakers blared warnings. Then the water cannons came, high-pressure streams slamming antennas, cracking windows, and knocking sailors off their feet. It's the gray zone playbook. Use force calibrated just below open combat to make the other side turn back while still inflicting real damage. That incident wasn't the first, and everyone in Manila knew it wouldn't be the last. Philippine crews have been blocked, bumped, and boxed out around Scarborough Shoal. At Reed Bank, survey ships have been chased off their lines. Across the Spratlys, China's maritime militia, fishing vessels that answer to state authorities, has crowded out anyone who gets in the way. Add to that a decade of island building, dredging reefs into runways at Fiery Cross, Subi, and Mischief, then hardening them with radar domes, hangars, and air defense positions, and you have a map that looks more militarized every year. For Manila, the pattern was undeniable. Warnings weren't deterring. Diplomatic notes were being ignored. And the Philippine Navy, professional but small, was stretched thin trying to escort every mission that might run into a blockade. The question hanging over the capital was the same one echoing on every bridge at sea. How do you stop pressure that never quite crosses the line in an open war? The Philippines had an answer sitting in plain sight: its Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States. Signed in 1951, it commits both countries to support each other if their armed forces are attacked. For years, the treaty was referenced more than rehearsed. That began to change as Washington and Manila expanded access under their Defense Cooperation Pact, opened more sites to U.S. forces, and rotated aircraft and troops through Philippine bases. After the August water cannon blasts, Manila wanted something public and unmistakable, proof that the ally it trusted would stand in the same water when it counted. Washington agreed, so the Allies planned an answer that would be visible, disciplined, and joint. A September naval drill in the South China Sea itself. No distant staging area, no safe corner of the Pacific, right where the pressure had been applied. Morning light glinted off gray hulls as Philippine frigates left Subic and U.S. destroyers joined them on station. The ships settled into formation, bridge crews on headsets, signal flags ready, helidecks cleared. Overhead, a U.S. Piete post-Sidon began a racetrack pattern, dropping sonobuoys and painting a wide picture of the surface and subsurface around the group. A Philippine patrol aircraft checked in on the net. The sound was a constant hum, bearings, distances, checklist calls, and the clipped rhythm of practice crews doing practiced work. The drill wasn't designed to scare anyone. It was designed to prepare for the harassment the Philippines has faced. First scenario, convoy escort. 2 Philippine supply ships tucked into the center of a protective box, with a U.S. destroyer on one beam and a Philippine frigate on the other. The group practiced turns, station keeping, and communications. How to maintain a corridor when someone tries to slice through it. On a chart, it looked clinical. At sea level, it meant a lifeline. Next up, contested approach. The task group simulated a run toward an outpost. practicing how to handle rapid-fire warnings and unsafe closures without giving up the mission or escalating into a collision. Bridge teams reviewed right-of-way rules and the scripts used when unsafe maneuvers start. On a Philippine deck, a signalman raised flags for restricted maneuvering. On a U.S. deck, the officer of the deck rehearsed shadowing positions, close enough to be present, far enough to keep a buffer. What looks like choreography is really muscle memory. Hold course, hold speed, and keep the route open. Then came aviation. A U.S. helicopter lifted from a destroyer's flight deck, circled, then settled into a hover over a Philippine ship for vertical replenishment. Slings tightened, pallets rose, and the two ships moved as one. A small ballet of rotor wash and deck signals that let supplies move even when seas are rough or the route is hostile. For an outpost living resupply to resupply, this is the difference between holding on and falling behind. Throughout the exercise, the radio crackled with simulated challenges and scripted responses. You are entering Chinese waters. Alter course immediately. Reply. This is a Philippine government vessel in Philippine waters conducting lawful operations. And then the quiet line that matters most in drills like these: escort maintains station. The point was never to trade threats. It was to show that an ally will hold formation with you when the shouting starts. All of this happened under watchful eyes. Chinese Coast Guard hulls loitered over the horizon. Maritime militia vessels clustered at distances that looked casual on camera and deliberate on radar. Satellites passed overhead. The point of an exercise like this is partly the training, and partly the fact of being there together in a place where the other side would prefer you not to be. Step back from the decks, and you see why this matters. Beijing claims most of the South China Sea under its so-called 9-dash line, a sweeping curve that overlaps the exclusive economic zones of multiple countries, including the Philippines. An international tribunal rejected the legal basis for that claim years ago, but the reality at sea is decided every day by presence. Ships that show up, stay on station, and keep sailing their routes to find what's normal. The Philippines is working to make sure its routes remain open, and that normal means you can't be pushed off your own supply line. The September drills weren't massive by global standards. No carrier strike group, no wall of cruisers. But location and timing gave them weight. It took place just after water cannon incidents that made headlines in Manila. They ran in waters where resupply to a tiny detachment has become a public test of national will. They paired Philippine crews with American crews who practice convoy escort, contested approaches, and air-sea coordination across the world. And they told every observer, friends, fence-sitters, and rivals, that the alliance is practical, repeatable, and not just for press releases. Around the region, capitals were watching closely. Vietnam knows these patterns. Its own ships have been shoved and shadowed. Japan and Australia, both tightening ties with Manila, saw proof that the alliance web in the Indo-Pacific is getting tighter. Even countries that prefer to keep their heads down, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, took note of two things. The drills were professional, and they were conducted without accidents or rash moves. In contested spaces, professionalism speaks louder than speeches. For Washington, the stakes run wide. Freedom of navigation is not an abstract slogan. It is the daily question of whether commercial shipping and allied vessels can move without asking for permission. For the Philippines, the stakes are immediate. If it cannot resupply a platoon on a rusting hull, what does that say about the next outpost or the one after that? And for Beijing, the lesson is simple. Persistent pressure now meets persistent presence. None of this guarantees smooth sailing ahead. Chinese cutters will challenge again. Maritime militia fleets will mass again. A camera, a loudspeaker, and a powerful water jet can create a lot of danger without a single shot fired. But drills like the September exercise change the baseline. They put ships and aircraft on familiar terms, give crews shared playbooks, and send a basic signal that can be read from space. Two flags in formation in the place that matters most. If you want to understand why Manila asked for this and why Washington agreed, listen to the bridge radios during those August encounters. The words are always the same: alter course. Turn away. You are in Chinese waters. When those orders are ignored and the water starts flying, crews have seconds to choose between escalation and endurance. Training doesn't make those choices easy, but makes them practiced, and practice choices save lives and prevent accidents when tempers run high. There's also a domestic dimension in Manila that can be easy to miss from outside. Every incident at sea is replayed on phones and televisions across the Philippines. Families watch sailors stagger across wet decks. Commentators argue about what should be done. Public pressure builds. An alliance drill isn't just a message to Beijing. It is reassurance to citizens that their country has friends who will show up in hard places. In democracies, reassurance matters. What comes next? More patrols, more escorts, more cameras, and likely more confrontations calibrated just below the red lines everyone has set for themselves. Beijing will continue to test. Manila will continue to run its routes. Washington will continue to balance presence with restraint. That is the pattern when the battlefield is a map of reefs and shoals, and the weapon is a column of high-pressure water. But patterns can be shifted. Every joint drill that rehearses convoy protection makes the next real escort steadier. Every vertical replenishment practice makes a resupply more likely to succeed. Every hour, a P-8 orbit shares data with a Philippine patrol aircraft builds a habit of cooperation that won't break under stress. Strategy at sea is not only about striking power. It is about stamina, logistics, and the will to keep showing up. All of that zooms back to the image that opened this story. Calm surface, pressure underneath. The Allies didn't come to start a fight. They came to show that pressure will be met by presence, and presence by practice. On a chart, that looks like tracks and bearings. In the real world, it looks like sailors on watch at 0300, a hello crew hooking a sling and spray, a bridge team choosing steady course and steady speed when a hull shadows close. The South China Sea will not quiet down because of one drill. But moments like this reset expectations. They tell the region that Manila is not isolated and that Washington's commitments are not academic. They tell Beijing that every push will be answered, not with taunts over a loudspeaker, but with ships that hold station and crews that know their jobs. And they remind everyone else who sails these waters that the routes remain open, the playbooks are active, and the horizon is watched. The standoff isn't over. It never really is in a place like this. But after September's drills, the balance feels a little different. The Philippines tested alliance muscle, and the United States flexed with care, firm enough to matter, disciplined enough to avoid miscalculation. That's how you deter without lighting a fuse. This is Naval Brief, your briefing room for sea power and defense analysis. If you're all hands on deck for real naval operations, maritime conflict, and global defense, subscribe and stay mission ready for the next briefing.